Welcome to Creative Piecemeal Podcast, a podcast for creatives. I'm your host, Tammy Takeishi. Join me for compelling conversations with artists, actors, authors, musicians, and other creatives about the impact of the creative and fine arts in their lives and our ever-changing world. Thank you for listening. Hello, and welcome to Creative Piecemeal Podcast. I'm your host, Tammy, and today I am joined by portrait photographer Dario Acosta. His brilliant work captures top musicians, artists, CEOs, and more, and can be seen across advertisements, magazines, and CD covers. He's a graduate of the School of Visual Arts and has been focusing his lens in creating mesmerizing photos for the past 15 years. It is an honor to have you on the show. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. We're going to jump right into questions. And you do travel a lot for your work. What is one of your favorite places to have visited so far?
Well, I had a three-day shoot with a musician for several CD covers that we shot at the same time in London. Well, it was in London and just outside in the English countryside on some old trains, and it was very cool with the piano, and I think that was one of the highlights of going to travel and having like amazing support staff to like get everything done.
Is there any place that you haven't traveled yet that's on your bucket list?
Yeah, everywhere. I mean, I think travel opens your mind and visually enriches you. I mean, I haven't been to the continent of Africa. That would be cool. And I haven't been out east yet. Europe, I go to quite often. And I've been to South America several times. And, the United States has a million places that I haven't seen yet. So there's a ton of places. I can't even pick one.
That's okay, though. It's good to have a long bucket list because, it gives you options.
Yeah, as long as you get the time to check them off.
Yes, yeah. So you've worked with some pretty impressive clientele and traveled near and far, but do you have a funny or favorite memory from your time as a portrait photographer so far?
I think that not one particular thing, but something that just kind of happens quite often is the unexpected. And I don't know if it's funny or what, but it's, for example, you scout a location, everything looks great. You scout it at the time that you're going to shoot. And then you scout it the day before, and then you go the next day and it's completely different. We had a shoot and there was this great old brick wall that just was perfect for this portrait, and scouted it, shot in the light the day before just to make sure. The day of the shoot, we walk over to the spot and the maintenance super guy is literally painting over with fresh paint on the whole wall. So those kinds of things where, you don't expect it. One of the first shoots that I did out in Los Angeles years ago, I scouted the location in the afternoon, and the light quality and everything. The shoot was scheduled in the morning for the next day. And I didn't realize at the time that you have this fog that comes in from the ocean in the morning.
Yeah.
And it was completely like cloudy and dark. And, it burned off, luckily, by the time we shot, but I was just not prepared for it, like completely different. So those kinds of things are funny in a way, but then you have to just kind of sort through them.
Right. Yeah. Bounce back and adapt. And
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to dig deeper a little bit for this next question. Do you recall a pivotal moment in your life when you realized you wanted to do something in the arts?
Yeah, I went to a high school that was kind of college preparatory, and it was a Catholic high school. So it wasn't like arts related. I didn't have any kind of art education background other than like what you do in high school, and it was just not really nothing. And I went to visual arts, where I ended up going to school of visual arts, and they had a weekend kind of a program for high school students. The minute I got there, I was hooked. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. The minute that I saw, we were talking about film back then, okay? So the minute that I put a print in, well, developed my film myself one day. We went out and shot and then developed the film. The next day we came into the dark room and processed what we shot, printed what we shot. And the minute that I saw that image come up in the developer on the tray in the dark room, that's it. I was hooked. Haven't done that in a while though. No darkroom work in a while.
Is that something people still do, darkroom work?
Oh yeah, sure. There's more popularity in it now too, just because it's just something slower paced, and professionally, it's kind of hard to go back because it took a while to professionally shoot digitally, until everything really became kind of equal to film, or better than, because of the immediacy. But you should film. There's a lapse between what you shot. It's just in your memory until you get the film back and you see. And so professionally, I haven't shot film for a couple of years, but it's all been digital. I do have a dark room, but most of my quote unquote dark room work is on the computer now. It's basically the same skills that you're working at, but just you do it on your computer instead of with great smelling chemicals.
Did you find that cameras progressed? Did you have to learn a lot more technology, a lot more software editing?
Software editing, yes. I don't do my own retouching. I let a professional retoucher retouch my photos. I just give them specs, on what I want, and I can retouch a little bit. They did make it easier and easier and easier for you to use things like Photoshop or Lightroom or or Capture. It did take a while for me to switch from film to digital, just because the cameras early on just were not equivalent and everything was slower. Now everything is much faster, and the cameras. Now really all I focus on right now is the basics. I stop shutter speeds. At this point, it's really the same as shooting film, but faster pace. You see what you got like right away, and if you have it, and you can move on. Or if you want to explore a little bit more, there's no limitations to. We shot 10 rolls of film already, and we can't shoot anymore because we're going to go out over budget, or those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. What are some things that you look for when you're shooting a photograph?
Technically, the basics, balance, the quality of the light, the feel that you get. It's not just having something in focus and the right exposure. It's my ideal photograph is a photograph that you forget is a photograph. That you look at it and you just transported there, and you feel what it's like to be in that space, in that rectangle or square, but that you're not looking at a photograph, but you're just looking at a moment. I'd say that a moment.
Oh, that's a wonderful thought.
Yeah.
Because it's what it is. It's a moment. It really is a moment.
Yeah. It's just a matter of capturing a split second. And if you look at, what was a contact sheet is, now you're just looking at it on the computer. But if you look at the progression, it's just a split second. Not even a split second. It's faster than a split second between one frame and another frame that moment comes alive, and then it goes away. And you try and get that moment always, and get a balance, get the balance of the person, because I'm shooting, all I'm shooting is really portrait work, that the person is, everything comes together at one point. 90% of the work that I do now is musicians and singers, which are musicians anyway. But I look at a photo shoot as a rehearsal. Okay, so we meet, we sit down, we get our tools out, we get our instrument out, put sheet music up, right? So you do all of those kinds of things musically, right? But for us, they come here, we take a look at the wardrobe, whether we're shooting on location or in the studio, and the whole shoot, as we start shooting, it's just, fine tuning the instrument, getting it right. And then all of a sudden in that rehearsal time, you got the performance, which is that one image that we said, everything kind of comes through. And then you keep rehearsing again until you get that moment again, until you get that quality in the shot, that performance.
That's a really interesting way of looking at that. I like that. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because it takes, when we do a photo shoot, we're not shooting 10 photographs. We're not shooting 20. We're shooting like 2,000 photographs.
Oh wow.
In a day, and you can't, you can't expect the person to understand that, like, out of the 2,000, 1,900 are not going to be good, because it's not a good, ratio, but it is because it's a rehearsal,
Yeah. Would you say a lot of it is gut reaction also when you got that perfect shot in the series of the 2000, you're like, that's the one? Or
I always trust my gut. Okay. I always, I've been doing it for a long time. I've been shooting for, close to 30 years and fine tuning all the time, shooting all the time to get better. When I'm not shooting a job, I'm usually shooting a test or something, just because you can't rely on, I mean, it's just like a musician. They're practicing their piano or the violin or the cello or whatever instrument they're playing, flutes, whatever. They're practicing every day a couple of hours, because they'll lose that muscle memory, right? It's the same for me. It's just a visual muscle that, you're constantly, whether it with portrait work, it's working with a person each time for the first time, usually, most of the time. And so if I'm shooting a test, it's really just getting that how to get what you want out of the person a little bit, just getting to know them, like
icebreaker and things like that.
Yeah, things like that then you bring into jobs, that you bring into,
It was just so fascinating to hear more about how that works from the photographer side, because, as you say, most people who are behind the lens, they don't always talk about the beauty and the magic of what they do. I was curious, what was your very first camera that you ever shot on, and do you still own it?
Yeah, I have. It's a Canon AE1 program, 35 millimeter. That was the first camera that I kind of went to school with and shot with. My very, very first camera was like the family camera, and it was just a little no-brand Continental. I bought one on eBay, but it's not the original. But I bought one on eBay. Yeah, it was just like a 110 little camera.
Nice. And of course, you've progressed up to different cameras since then.
Yeah. Every couple of years, I went from 35 millimeter to finally getting my Hasselblad, which is a 2.25, and that camera was supposed to be a lifetime camera, but then digital came in. I shot with my Hasselblad 2.25 for years and years and years. It's a beautiful camera. I still have them, all of them. But then different camera makers got better at, first I was shooting with Nikon, and then I switched to Canon, and then I switched back to Nikon briefly, then I switched back to Canon, and then I am now shooting with another camera, Fuji.
Nice. What do you think of the amazing technology in phone cameras nowadays that sort of turn everyone into like an armchair photographer?
I mean, it's kind of great because they're much more visually aware of things, people. The phones make everything so easy. Sometimes I'm shooting something. So when we shoot professionally, our cameras are capturing like these raw files that we need to work on the computer. They're not perfect at all when they come out of the camera. And the iPhone pictures just look perfect. I mean, they just look like, wow, I hope I got that on my camera. But the more photography, the better. Everybody, armchair photographers, you're right. There's like a lot of them. And that is a problem because a lot of it is not quality. But, overall, I guess the more people are visually alert to things, the better it is for everybody. As long as they understand the difference between an iPhone or photo shoot for social media and professional, and what the professional brings to the table,
Yeah. There's certainly quite a difference for sure between people shooting a picture of their flower in their garden versus a professional coming in and taking a portrait. Again, you spoke about how you work with a lot of musicians. Have you ever played musical instruments yourself?
No, I've tried the guitar several times. At least 4 times I've tried taking multiple lessons with different people for different times in my life to play the guitar. I just can't get it. I mean, it is part of it is having the time to practice, and the other part is that I think that my eyes are just a lot stronger than my ear is to the subtleties that you need to make music. So I'm always in awe of anybody that makes music. I wish I could play the guitar, but nah, no luck yet.
You certainly do amazing work with photography. So,
Thank you.
if we were to sneak a peek at your music collection, what are some things we'd find in there?
Mostly classical music. I mean, that's what I listen to mostly. I do have, a lot of recordings and a lot of recordings of people that I've shot, like CD covers I've done. That's most of my collection is just people I've worked with, stuff I've done, or people that I want to work with, and so forth. But I also have two daughters, so there's a lot of embarrassing CDs in my collection. But yeah, mostly classical music.
Can't go wrong with classical. Do you ever do photo shoots with music on in the background?
Not with classical music. Classical music is not good for most photo shoots with musicians, especially classical musicians, because they're concentrated on, oh, they missed a note. Oh, I wouldn't have played it that way. Oh, oh, this is a good recording. Oh, yeah, can you change this recording because this isn't a good recording of, this Bach concerto or whatever. So and also the classical, for the most part, as a background, it's just the tempo and it's just too subtle. It's kind of like working out to classical music, it's just not, you need something a little bit more upbeat. Even if you can't, you concentrated on the shoot and you can't hear it, that kind of pop and like rap and just has a tempo, a beat that's just a little bit easier to shoot with. So most of the stuff is just contemporary that we're listening to, and it makes a huge difference.
I was gonna say that makes a lot of sense. It, like you said, comparing it to working out, you need something like upbeat and there's energy there. What is the biggest sector of photography and visual art that you're curious about right now?
I really try to break that mold of classical music being stiff, visually. Because I mean, if you look at a lot of CD covers and stuff that are out there, older work, it's just, I don't know, it's just like a pastoral painted scene, like it's, I mean, everybody that's making music is energetic in their way, and they're creative, and they are not stiff, and they're not boring. I always opt for showing the dynamic quality of a person, whether they're a classical musician or something more contemporary. I think that the right portraits just bring out that quality, and it's a marriage with their music,
Very true. Yeah. Because you're capturing another side of that musician.
Yeah.
How has your life in the creative arts been different than you imagined it would be?
I don't know if I ever had really time to think about what my life would be like in the creative arts. It's just, you just do what you do. You know what I mean? Like I said, when I was 17 and I did that class at SVA, I mean, from then on, I didn't think of what my creative life would be like. I mean, in the beginning, it's not a creative life. In the beginning, you're just, for the most part, if you don't have any money, and I never, I always had to work for everything. So if you needed to buy a camera, you need to work until save up money to buy that camera, right? It's not like I had money, I never really kind of thought. I just did what you do, I mean, in the beginning, it's just like terrible kinds of photography, not the kinds of stuff you want to do, not the kind of stuff that I'm doing now. But it's just, you got to pay bills. So I never really kind of thought, okay, this is what my life is going to be like. Well, you know what? Now, come to think of it, yeah, maybe a little bit, because by the time I got through some of those, those corporate like jobs that we used to do back in the day, just like, headshots of corporate people, and you were looking at photography in magazines like Vanity Fair or GQ or all these profiles of singers and musicians and work of people like back then like Annie Leibovitz or something like that, and that's kind of what you inspired to be like, to have that, to work with some of the best people producing the most amazing art in the world at the moment. So that's what I guess that is what what I envisioned my creative life to be like.
And I think that artists, when they do have to do grunt work or the path is not straight and narrow, I think once they reach one of their milestones in life or where they're content, I think they're able to appreciate it even more.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're always grateful. I'm always grateful to come into the studio or location and do what I want to do. And years of doing that grunt work and doing great work. Great work. I don't want to say great work about my work, but years of doing grunt work and years of doing work that you wanted to do, the kind of work that you were aspired to do. So I'm always grateful for the ability. You're right. Everybody that goes through those kinds of hardships appreciates everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What advice do you have for people who want to be a professional photographer? Like what would you suggest?
The only thing I suggest is it has to be in you. It has to be the only thing. It can't be a backup. You can't be one thing and a photographer professionally. There's too much competition and not good competition. There's a lot of terrible competition out there, but a lot of times it comes down to money, and so you're competing against people sometimes, just money wise. But I would say that it just has to be in your heart. You just have to know, because it has to take over your life. It's an art that has to, whatever you do, I guess. I mean, painting, music, whatever you do, you can't just do it halfway. You have to do it all the way, or you're not going to be successful. If your focus isn't pinpoint on what your craft is, then you're just not going to be where you want to be eventually.
Very true. Very true. If you had no limits and no budgets on a project, what do you think you would do?
I mean, I would travel and do portrait work of people around the world. I mean, it's capturing, portraits of people is amazing. And travel is amazing. And just seeing the differences and the similarities we all have, and just really, I mean, that's, if I didn't have to work and I had see, that's the funny thing. If I didn't have to work, I would still do what I do. I just, maybe just be a little more selective. But I still, I do what I do because I love it. If I didn't have to work, didn't have to make money, if I won the lotto and was a multi-billionaire, I'd travel around and just shoot, faces around the world.
That's wonderful. That's always great when people have such a passion for what they do that they would still do it no matter what. What's a common myth or stereotype about being a photographer that you hope to break with your work?
With my work, my work is really more so about the other person than it is about me. I think I don't see myself in my work other than the capacity to break through to what that other person is projecting. I don't see all my work is varied. It's different. I don't see a style. Like I don't have a particular image style. People do recognize my work, but really they recognize my work because you could see the person in the photograph. You can feel the person a little bit. But wow, as far as a myth, so my work isn't really about me. So, but I don't know. That's a tough one because I don't know what kind of myth. We're not like cool. Photographers are, maybe some fashion photographer is cool, but we're like the people that I shoot, just everyday people, kind of nerdy because, if you're talking about photographers, like real image makers, then we're nerdy. The myth is that we're nerdy. We're not cool guys.
What is something that photography has taught you in your life?
To appreciate details, to appreciate subtleties, and to appreciate light. I don't know if everybody goes around really appreciating how beautiful the light is at any moment. And as a photographer, light is the only tool we have. That's what we paint with. That's this color, but light is, without light we can't do anything. So you really appreciate light and the beauty of the sun, and how it transcends like landscapes and moments, and so I'd say just that appreciation to the details and subtleties of light.
I would have to agree. There are times when the way the light streams in a window is just breathtaking.
Yeah. Even if it picks up those little dust particles because flying through the air, and all those things are beautiful. Yeah.
What is something you wish you had known about photography or about having to have a photography business when you first started?
That it's a business, that it's not just an art, but that it's a business, that you need money. You need money for marketing. When I first started, it was completely different than now. You really had to market, and to market, you had to produce things. You had to postcards to mail out, books to print and send out, portfolios that you needed to make prints of your work and to send out. All that's changed now. Marketing is much easier now. That's it. I just wish I knew that. I wish in the beginning, I'd say you realize, well, this is a business, and because it takes a while to understand that. You get hit a lot in the beginning with, well, if you do this for us, we'll get you more work later on, and you end up doing a lot of stuff that you think is going to be good for you, and it's not. So that's it. That's the only thing I think that I wish I knew back then.
If you could shoot a portrait of any creative person who's passed on that you haven't had a chance to shoot in life, who would that have been?
Maybe Picasso or Salvador Dali. Picasso, I'd say.
That would be very interesting for sure.
Yeah, and he's not a musician, huh? But yeah, musician, maybe Callas. But I think if I had just one choice, I think Picasso would be really interesting to coordinate a shoot with.
That would be. One final question. In your own words, what does it mean to live a creative life?
All right, to live a creative life, to understand that that you have time for yourself, you have time to enjoy things, that you'll have time to create, but and time to worry, because living a creative life, unfortunately, there's very few in our society that can live a creative life and not have to worry about bills. So, if you're going to live a creative life, you got to understand you are going to worry about bills. There's no matter, unless you're extremely successful, and that's very, very few, you're still going to be worried about bills. But you're also going to have time. If you go into some sort of a creative life, you will have time to enjoy the things that is part of life. You will have time to travel. You'll make time to enjoy these things because they enrich your creative mind. Travel, museums, movies, listening to music, going for walks and enjoying the light. All those things are the things that make your creative mind full of ideas and things. And if you're living a creative life, whatever field you are, painter, photographer, musician, writer, all those things just fill your head visually, emotionally, and that's where your creativity kind of flourishes.
Excellent. It's always interesting to hear what each guest has to say because everyone says something different, but I think at the core is still that sense of how special and unique living a creative life is.
Yeah, definitely. we were talking about being grateful. I'm grateful for all those positives. And when I worry about something like a bill or when I worry about something, I always I always think to myself, well, the other side of this is that you can go to a museum in the middle of the day because this is work. You're enriching yourself. You're making yourself a better artist. You can go for a walk to clear your mind. You don't have to, sit at the computer and do something like for somebody else.
Any final words to the audience before we go?
Just remember that if you do enter into creative life, just be grateful. Be grateful for all those little nuances of having a creative life, and just make sure you're creating all the time.
Excellent. Dario Acosta, thank you so much. And listeners, please check the show notes to connect with him on social media and to follow his work. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Like the show? Have a question? Stop by the Facebook and Instagram pages. Links are in the show notes, or search for Creative Piecemeal Podcast on social media and click follow for all the latest.